When I was in primary school, I happened to see movies like Madhumati, Bimal Roy's, and which inspired me a lot. In fact, as a school kid itself, I saw Madhumati about 6 times. And later it became literally a cult, a legendary film. Similarly, Gone with the Wind, I saw as a very, very young, when I was again in primary school. And that really took me by storm, I would say. I still remember some of the scenes and from those days itself. So my interest in cinema was from a very young age. And similarly, I was also into other arts. I was acting in theaters from primary school into high school, and and finally into college. I mean, acting, writing, doing shadow plays and tableaus, directing even some of the school plays, and etc. So the art was a part of my life, I would say. It was one of my passion from very, very early stage. So obviously I tried my hand in writing a kind of screenplay when I was in high school, along with some full-length musical theater inspired by movies like My Fair Lady and Sound of Music and some American musicals. This thing was to end up in some school. By the time you're in college, you heard about FTI. And then I happened to meet very early stage through my very close relative and friend, Paul Zakaria, the writer. I happened to meet John Abraham first, and later through John Abraham, KG George, Balu Mahendra, and cameraman like Ramchandra Babu, editor like Ravi, who also worked with P.N. Menon and Ramu Kariyat, and such legendary directors. So even before I go into institute itself, I start going out with some editing work with Ravi, editor Ravi. He invited me to his editing room in Madras, because at that time I was studying music. After my graduation for 2 years, I was studying Western classical music in Madras, piano and composition, and later also into how to write operas and things like that. So that was my interest. So along with the cinema, I also had this theater, interest in my ballets, Tchaikovsky and Stravinsky, with whom, particularly with John Abraham, those pre-institute days I used to discuss and listen to a lot of Western classical music of Stravinsky and Tchaikovsky and Mozart, Beethoven, analyze them with the music. And also the painters. John also introduced me to a lot of painters, those days, Mr. Devan, and of course, and Nambudiri, and Karnagaran, these are a lot of people like that. So my interest in arts was like that from the beginning. So
you came from FTI Pune, after 3 years.
Yes.
Direction.
Yes.
How did you end up working with Aravindan? Because of course that was the time.
Yeah.
I would say the golden period of
Malayalam cinema. Yeah. I was in mid 70s, 74 to 77. I was in FTI. I did my direction and screenplay writing, postgraduate diploma. So I happened to meet, of course, Adur when I was as a student. Even before I went to FTA, by the way, I attended a meeting where I met most of including Satyajit Ray and Mrinal Sen, way back in 1970, early 74, in Bangalore, in a ecumenical center. They had a festival of Girish Karnad, M.S. Satyu, Adur, Mrinal Sen, Sham Benegal. I happened to meet them. Sham has not yet, I think he moved into cinema yet, but he happened to drop in there. But Karnad had just made card, and we saw the preview of card there, and Ray. So my interest was always like that. So obviously, I had met Aravindan before I went to FTI once, and immediately after he made Uttarayanam, he had a preview in Kottayam, his native place. Preview of Uttarayanam, where I was invited by some of my friends, from Kottayam, Aravindan's friends also. And again I met them. So I said, I told him that I'm in FTI as a student. So I said, when I come back, I would like to work with him. He said, of course. So he was happy with it. And because through Zachariah also and E.P. Kurian and others, he knew who I was. Anyway, I'm from Palay, very close by. So obviously there was a kind of this thing Aravindan also could see. So after I came out of FTI, I went and met Aravindan along with E.P. Kurian in Trivandrum. So he said he'll be working in a movie. That time he was planning Tambu actually. So he had finished Kanchana Sida, and so he said he will take a little more time. So I had meanwhile also written to KG George. So George had asked me, why don't you join him immediately, within a week period. So it was at September end of 1977. So I joined him, KG George. Not exactly as an associate, because he had already had his team. So he said, come over and be with him. So we stayed together in the same hotel, and I could discuss with the script with him. Because since George knew me from 1971-72 itself, earlier with John Abraham, Ramchandra Babu, those days actually, immediately after his post-Nallu period.
So you were part of the famous Pune house?
Yeah, the early days, like Balu Mandra, and so that's why we became very close to Balu also, And so this was there. So immediately after the first schedule was over in Calicut, and immediately after that, I joined Aravindan for the scripting of Thumb actually in Trivandrum. We stayed in a lodge called Sopna Lodge near opposite Secretariat in Trivandrum, in a statue they call, area, and we were there for about 22 days, staying there and writing everything, close to Aravindan's house. So we used to go for meals to Aravindan's house, then come back and write in the room there. I would like to say about the idea of the intuition, but that I'll come to later, because Aravindan always believed in intuition and taught me one of the greatest things which I learned from Aravindan was believe in your intuition, because the intuition is always right, and which I realize in all my creative field, whether it is when I was doing ad films or documentaries or music for that matter. It is your intuition which says this is okay, this is, you have to redo this again, this take is. So similarly, believe in intuition, because intuition is, immediately
that's the creative self.
Creative self. In fact, I worked with Aravindan in 3 films, full length, kind of. That was Thumb in 1977, then in Kumati, 78, and then in 79 in Astapan. In all the 3, we sat actually on the scripting. Yeah. In fact, as I said, in Thumb we sat for almost 22 days, and we had scene by scene breakdown, literally.
Okay.
Yeah. Only thing, the dialogue as such, I had, okay, this is the concept, or this is the idea behind the dialogue, so I just paraphrase and put it there. But the scene as such, scene number 1, we say, on the river bank, morning or pre-dawn, etc., or the street, the circus lorry is approaching. All that was written down correctly in terms of exterior, interior, day, dawn, morning, noon, night. Because I kept writing from my institute days, and a little bit I read about the screenplays, at least from the institute days. I wrote the time very, very precisely in terms of pre-dawn, because I knew pre-dawn we need to have a particular kind of lighting and atmosphere, which has a mist, unlike the evening dusk, which is actually, there's a difference in terms of light and the ambience feeling. So even though it's a black and white film, I very clearly wrote, it's a pre-dawn means pre-dawn. Dawn, morning, early morning, noon, because the sunlight, for example, in Thumb you see that. Literally we shot, when I written down noon, it's literally the shots were taken by, us at literally at noon time. You can see the shadow in black and white very clearly. It is taken from, the sun above.
So you mean to say that the script are essentially a visualizes the light, but you didn't write
the dialogue as such, precise. Dialogues were, at the scene, Aravindan writes, okay, so and so speaks this, and he writes in a paper and give it to me. Yeah, he first used to come to me because I used to go and, okay, what about the conversation? This is what we thought about it when we were writing that. Okay, so he said, okay, this is the thing, and he passed it on to me. Just in a small little papers. These are like almost like individual small papers sometimes, or torn from one of your notes, So thing. But basically, we had an idea what probably is transpiring there, in terms of the conversation, or what is the thing like that.
No, that comes to another question.
Yeah.
Did it create a problem in the editing suite?
No.
You didn't have the dialogues maybe with you that time. They were saying something, there's no location recording as such.
No, we had a kind of location, but actually, to be very frank, all the dialogues was written down is actually I had collected because I was that way little meticulous. Yeah, not only in terms of, as I said, even I gave I created tablets forms like to give to Shaji, to the thing like morning, okay, these are the things, scenes will be here, these are the scenes, these are the thing for the costume department, these are the costumes, these are the dresses, from this actor or this actress will be using this costume in this scene number, 7, scene number 16 will have the same, probably the lungi or the, or the shirt, we can reuse it there, etc., like that.
The details were...
Yeah, details, so which, by the time we came to Kumalti, I was more precise because I even started writing exactly what is the properties like, they have a goggles or a hat or a stick in the hand, or the properties within the location. Okay, this has to be there this way. This is a black shirt. This is a kavi shirt, etc., etc. Yeah, all that way. So we start writing down little more precisely. Yeah.
So, which comes to a more related question because
yeah.
Aravindan films are noted because of its ideation.
Yes.
More than sometimes people say that film craft. Aravindan could be an issue, and some other film like Walkaway and all. He went for the music part of it, not necessarily the film as film's grammar as it.
Yeah.
So you are from the FTI. You have a trained concept about film, grammar of film and visualization.
Yeah.
So how easy or difficult was for you to work with Aravindan?
No, actually it was, first of all, he's a very, very easy person. And I think somehow we were on the very first day, we hit off. Because I think we were on the same vibration or same thing. Because, for example, I remember very clearly in Tambu, I think of him, probably we should introduce a character. Just an idea. I said, why don't we have maybe the Panchayat president? So Aravindan said, oh, that's what exactly I was thinking of. He would say. So similarly, he'll say, probably we should have a scene here in Altara. Then I say, okay. I said, that's what I was thinking. Probably you got this thing. Like the moment, each one to say we could almost like fill up the blanks. What will happen there? Because I think that's the kind of vibrations we had. So that way happened actually almost very initial stage itself. So from Tampa I realized that. But so I think that was easy with Aravindan, and he knew that. One thing I think he also trusted me in terms of that anything that I contribute or anything that I put in, it's for the betterment of the cinema, betterment of the movie. Even when I say, okay, this we should not do this, or even when I remember in editing table, I said, no, we have to edit out this scene. So you said, so my God, we are taken with so much of time. So I said, yeah, but I said it's becoming redundant. I would say, yeah.
Of course, there is a marked difference between Uttarayanam and Tambu. By the time you reach Tambu.
Yeah.
Whole style is evolved in a different way.
Yeah, no, but I think that way from Uttarayam to Kanjana Sita is different. Kanjana Sita to Tambu is different. For each of the films, he kept changing because I think the form didn't dictate the content. It's the other way around. The content almost dictated because it's like almost like. So I think that was very easy. That's why I said to the wives, we said Tambu, we knew Aravindan. I think somehow I realized that Aravindan wanted a kind of a generic kind of docu kind of feel, and I immediately that we need to create that contemporary characters we have to pick up from the village itself. I say, and the little that I know of the villages, I knew, okay, these are kind of characters are probably available in our villages, and so we could create that. So same thing happened in the time of Kumalti. and later particularly Esteban, where I was much more deeply involved in terms of, because the concept I was itself was actually kind of mine. I mean, the Esteban Academy, a lot of these things, and the screenplay form.
You said Aravindan's film, it was the ideation,
Yeah.
which was predominant.
Yes.
And then one of the criticism of his style is that, but he discounted film, the craft of the film. So because you could see it from both sides. Because
Yeah.
you're a trained filmmaker,
Yeah.
as well as you're working with.
Yeah.
How do you see that?
No, I know that. I know that we had this thing, not so much during Tambajali. In Kumati time we had, because Kumati also had songs, so sometimes we play back the song, and playbacking we have to do in a particular way, and then the shots has to be taken in a particular order. Sometimes we repeat the cues and things like that. So those kind of areas sometimes we had little thing, so we used to say okay. But then Aravindan is I think was open and intelligent enough to understand what we are trying to say, before even you almost fully finish the sentence. Okay, he knew that. And so, he agreed with that, and, so it was easy that way. Whether it's at the location or it was, and obviously, one thing with Aravindan and myself, during Tambu, Kumati and Esteban, we always in the shooting, not only that we stayed together, normally we were in the same room or the adjacent bed. So even when you come, into the bed, we were discussing sometimes, or early morning, we start discussing. And normally I used to be the first person to wake up at every, being the youngest one and the main associate. I had to see that everybody is on time, which the punctuality is something which I keep up even up to now. Yeah, I had to see that we had to be on time. Everybody has to be on time at the. Yeah.
And next question is, just as his cartoons.
Yeah.
Aravindan carried the period.
Yeah.
And the social psyche of the people of that period.
Yes.
Is it a right statement?
Well, these things are.
Or I'll say, put it other way, was he ahead of his time as far as film is concerned? Cartoons, yes, he carried fully.
Yes.
The youngsters grew up on.
Yeah.
Like me, grew up on his.
Yes, I know. I remember that. Cherry mentioned it. Yeah.
Kanjana or Kumati or even Esteban.
No, ahead of his time in the sense of the filmmaking style. I think it is the filmmaking, the film as such, it opened up an entirely new style and I would say genre to the Indian audience, the Kerala audience.
So how do you describe as an intellectual filmmaker, philosopher's filmmaker, or a creative genius?
I would say creative genius. A creative genius is beyond all this compartmentalization. Audience can take him as, get their triggers, philosophical concepts in them, political ideas, the way we look at contemporary things, or for that matter, intellectual concepts and things. So everything it triggers, any art triggers and any artist triggers that. And Aravindan was a great artist. He's not only just a filmmaker, but he is beyond that as a great artist actually.
You worked with him over 3 films.
I worked with full time for 3 films, but in Pokkuvel I was also involved in the pre-discussion of the concepts and screenplay, some of the scenes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is your most cherished moment with Aravindan?
Well, there are hundreds of them, many.
One which comes to your mind?
Yeah. As I was telling you, I learned one thing, they believe in intuition. I think that was something which I could constantly see. He was not there to analyze things. He said, let us not go into analyzing, things like that. As long as things we see they are put together in editing table, or when it comes to the, if it's communicating enough, then that is enough. So that intuition part of it, which is one of the things which strongly imbibed in me. To believe in intuition. There are a lot of moments. I think I remember before the Delhi festival when he was one of the jury members. So we were staying together in the rubber boat guest house. So again, we were in the same room, and after his screenings, he used to come there. That was pre-festival actually, and time he used to come in the evening, and we used to discuss the films that he saw. And for him also that was actually opening into a lot of world cinema, new filmmakers, like for example Chantal Ackerman, movies called Jinal, which is 3.5 hours, a single shot runs for more than 10 to 15 minutes, and the beauty of that. So so we were discussing that. Aravindan for the first time probably was realizing a filmmaker, seeing a filmmaker. So
one important thing which you said about this intuition.
Yes.
But for Aravindan, he was a cartoonist, he was a thinker, he was a musical person.
Yes.
He's a visualizer.
Yes.
So for him, it was totally creative.
Yes.
To reach that creative, leave your thoughts to creative intuition.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of new filmmakers, you feel they are, since filmmaking combines a lot of these aspects.
Yes.
To visualization.
Yes.
And literature.
Yeah.
Everything. So to reach that level of creative intuition, you think you need huge preparation for youngsters, or I'll say an aspiring filmmaker?
Yeah, definitely. I think anything that we put in here, you will have to add to your creative output. So the question is that whether we, not only in terms of cinema, the world cinema as such, the way it has progressed or the way it has changed. The entire world of painting, for example, last 5,000 years, sculptures, buildings, literature, poetry, dance movements, dance forms, why garden forms, or for that matter, textile designs, everything that inspires us. It's not merely, and for example, how even the sounds, how the sound itself is formed. Today we are learning a lot about sounds. Much more than where we see. Not merely I'm talking about the real sound. So all that, of course, anything that you put in, any learning, any information, you put in will add to your wealth or the totality of your output, and that's actually your product finally. Yeah, you're known by that. Yeah, it will be seen there, I think.